I'm Derek, and this is Tony. We're part of the sales and project management team at North American Steel.
Today we'll be walking you through a racking project from the first call through to the installation and handover.
Whether you're in the early planning phase or already working through the design, this video will help give you a clear picture of what you can expect and how to get the most out of the process.
Let's get into it.
With the initial contact with the customer, somebody calls in, you get an email. How do you approach that situation? What's your next step?
I like to reach out by phone. I think phone is the most efficient means. It typically is able to get a quick idea of what next steps are. From that, depending on when the project timeline is going to be, or really the project timeline, what stage the project is. If it's a greenfield, maybe they're not even in the building yet and where everything can be done digitally. If it is a existing operation, a brownfield site, next step typically is a site visit. And at that point, I'm looking to collect all of the information about the project, operations, handling equipment, goals, timelines, to be able to work with our design team to create the solution that we quote. Now on the quoting side, or the design side, how do you typically see the process unfold?
Yeah, so like you said, when you go in there and you get your requirements, you can start by kind of looking at that first layout design. Giving them a couple bays. You need 2 bays. You show them what it looks like, right? We can do that very quickly with our design team. We can just give them an idea, and a lot of customers like to see that, right? Visually, they want to see what it's going to look like, whether it's in the space or just a concept of the storage itself. So that would kind of be a first step. Then in that information gathering, you see, what do you need this system to hold? So that's when you loop in engineering and you have a review of our products that we offer and what one they'll require for their solution. A lot of different solutions. So Again, it's just scratching on the surface on that, but that's kind of the next step, is the engineering side of it. And then once you have an idea of your customer likes drawing or the layout that you've worked with them on, and you've done the engineering, you can put the pricing together. For the quoting process, when we actually get into that, you get to the facility. What are you looking for? What's your process to start?
So out the gate, let's start kind of at the high level of the building. That's the first thing. There's 3 main components in the building that I'm typically look for. The first component is what are the receiving conditions? How does product or the racking come into the building? Have we got a dock level door? Have we got a ramp to play with? The next question is where is the space that we are playing with inside of the building? Some situations, it's a blank warehouse. All the space is what we're playing with. In other situations, in existing buildings, it might be a small corner in the back of the facility and actually has a difficult means of navigating to that location. So those are the 2 first things I'm looking for. The third thing is the cubic space. I want to know the width, the depth, the height of the space that we're putting racking into it. Are there any obstructions? Are there doors? Are there low-hanging HVAC units? Is the concrete quality good? Are there columns in the way? Is there anything that's going to need to be relocated? It's that kind of dynamic that really impacts the project, whereas the other 2 components are the install kind of element. Those 3 parts really make up a big part of the execution of the install and the system design. But then we go deeper and we want to look at a little bit from the operational perspective. Derek, what operational components are you looking at?
Well, I mean, first off, again, with that conversation, when you're talking to the customer, and what you can ask them what type of system they currently have. Maybe you go in and they currently have a system, and you can get a lot of information off that to start, right? But like you said, if you go into a greenfield, if it's blank, then you start asking them about their inventory, their SKUs, their processes.
Maybe what they use in their old facility.
Absolutely. But I like to see if they have existing. Maybe they have an old facility. What are you used to? What worked well? What didn't work well? Are you changing your operation? So that's kind of the first thing. Once you see the space, how have you used your other spaces and what worked? Then again, at your old facility or this one, what is the material you're using? What's that you're handling everything with, right? The equipment, your forklifts. How is it a counterbalance truck that you need 12-foot aisles? So that's, again, reviewing back what they've used currently and what works for them. If they're going to bring that same stuff over, it might limit you in what you can offer, right, in your solutions. So trying to figure out if they're willing to get different material handling equipment for what they're trying to achieve, or are they just going to use that same equipment? Will kind of give you an idea of where you got to be or where you can be. And again, off that, with their SKUs, with how they're handling it, their pick methods. So FIFO, or first in, first out. LIFO, last in, first out. About rotating. Do they need to rotate their SKUs? Is it produce? Is it anything with an expiration date that it matters if they're putting a skid away or product away, that they get that shipped out first? So that's not for everybody, but that's one of the things we look at. It might just be selective racking. You have a lot of SKUs. You need that selectivity of materials. You're selling hoses and you have a whole bunch of different styles, right? You only hold on to 20 SKUs and you're shipping them out, right? So I need to see every different style because I need to pick it. So you're going to look at selective. So that's kind of what I see. There's a lot of, you go in, you see a lot of different things that way. And it's good to see what they've used before to generate in your new space or your growing space. So when you're looking, you get some information on what they've used and you start diving into their inventory and what they're actually putting on this stuff. What are you looking into? What are the details you're trying to find out?
So typically we try to find common unit sizes. Are you starting with a pallet? Are you starting with a case? Is there similarities? Is there an average size or something that fits? If you have an existing facility, oftentimes you can just look at the racking and what they're using now. Is there a lot of empty space? Can we make some adjustments? Or is the current spacing working for them? From that, I think SKU count becomes a big factor. Knowing, do they have a lot of SKUs, and how many pallets per SKU they're holding. If you have 3 or 4 pallets per SKU, likely pallet selective racking is going to do you well. But if you're holding 20 and you're shipping out by the pallet, maybe now high density system comes into it. Now from a high density system perspective, there's a lot of different options: pushback, gravity flow, drive-in, pallet shuttle. But one of the factors that's important for these systems is pallet quality. So getting a sense of the control the customer has over their pallets. Are they in good condition? Are they buying their own pallets or changing their pallets? Do they have any influence up or down channel to see what kind of pallets are coming into their facility? Or are they stuck with what they have and have to make it work? Each system has its pros and cons in that sense. And some are more forgiving to lower quality pallets, whereas others are very unforgiving to low quality pallets. And so that becomes a big component during the design stage. Now, one other component that I think is very important is knowing how many pallets you have today and knowing how many pallets you want to store tomorrow. Having a sense of what that change is going to be. You don't want to design a system for being fully loaded the day you move in. You want to have some breathing room so that the company can grow and you can adjust to the new operations. Now, there is one last area that typically comes into play, and I think this is mostly in that permit compliance side of things. Derek, what considerations or things give our customers an opportunity to kind of set themselves up for success when going into a racking project?
Yeah, on that side of things, when you're looking at the engineering side, once you get past the actual, what you want to store and the materials you're using, all the fun stuff behind the scenes with the engineering that we're helping with, that can help is, the seismic zone is huge right now because of the changing codes within the industry. And, they are continuously evolving and getting updated. And that's just something that we've come and known that's going to happen. And it comes with its own challenges. But knowing those ideas of location will affect what you can actually put on the racking dependent on the style you have. There are limitations based on the building. Again, we can get super deep into this, but we'll look at the seismic loads based on your current location, see what the requirements are. One thing that is becoming large in our requests that you can give to, or that a customer can give to us that could help out is a geotech report. Not everybody has them.
Now, what is a geotech report?
It's the analysis of the substrate underneath your actual building. Yeah. So what it is, it kind of helps with the seismic reactions, or doesn't help. How loose is it? Is your building going to move a lot? Somebody comes in, gets that information, and they give you a site class. If we don't have that, we always have to look at everything based on the worst case scenario. But if you do have access to that, you might get improvements on the design of your racking, or improvements in the sense of savings. Don't always have it, but look into that if you have the opportunity.
Now, my question is, do you think that everybody should look into a geotechnical report, or is there is it always going to create you value? Because this report can cost a few dollars. It's not a cheap report. It's
absolutely
thousands of dollars. Is it always worth doing?
No, it's not. If you got a small back room and you got 2 levels of racking, you're storing 2,000 pounds, not even per level. There's no sense in doing it. When talking to our engineers, when you're getting up to the 20,000 pound or post load area, that's very high in this day and age. If you're, I'd say you just always want to talk to your rep. We know where the engineers want to go. We'll advise in the best direction. And we're not going to say every single time, hey, you should go get that. Like you said, it costs a lot of money. So no, there's a lot of situations that you don't need it, and we'll help advise, whether it's something to look into or not, based on getting all this analysis and seeing what works best for them.
That makes sense. I think if you're moving into a new building, a geotech was probably already done. So there's an opportunity for you to get that. If you're moving into an older building, less so. And I think scale, if you're going heavy or if you're going big, it may be worth the look.
Absolutely. All right, Tony. So if somebody calls in and they're saying, listen, this job might not be for a few years, but I still want a quote, but do we really have to dig in that deep and get all that information we talked about? Is there any way you can help me? How do you help a customer like that?
So that's a good question, Derek. It's one of those things is there's a lot of things going on in the organization, and our quoting process is pretty extensive. Now, we want to encourage everybody to be able to explore and plan and budget and come up with ideas, and that's where we have that ability to kind of assist with that early stage budget. Now, because the quoting process requires a lot of information, you got to have drawings, plans, concepts, layouts. Oftentimes, that process takes a couple weeks. A budget can be put together a lot quicker. And really, the kind of big thing with a budget is having a sense of what space you have, what system you're looking at, or how many pallet positions are you looking to target and what system you're using. And we go through a lot of different quotes. We do a lot of different projects. It's not hard to use a kind of cost per pallet position to give you that high level kind of order of magnitude. Now, this number is typically going to be plus minus up to 30%. I think it's a great number to play with, especially when your project is a year or 2 or 3 years out. And even something good to kind of do an initial feel for any capital allowances for the coming years. That number is fast. That usually can be released within a day or two, oftentimes potentially just over a phone call, whereas a quote is a little bit lengthier process. So we do welcome budget requests, but just kind of bear in mind what you're looking for and how you're going to get to the next step.
It's that communication of understanding that it is a budget versus a real quote.
Yeah.
Let's say the client reviews the quote and decides to move forward. What happens next? What happens from quoting to kicking off the project?
So after a project is awarded or confirmed, going through the due diligence process to analyze the building components, the site dimensions, making sure everything is finalized and ready to go to move to the next stage. If you're in a municipality that requires it, permit might be the next stage. In other situations, this may be that point in time where it is handed off to the rest of the team here at North American Steel to kind of move through the machine, as we like to call it, and get ready for that installation day.
What are those milestones that we're going to see or the customer is going to see through this project after the kickoff starts?
So, Derek, there's a kind of I like to think of it as goals. There's goals along the way, and we're going to get to this point. The first goal is to get to a completed stamp drawing. This is going through the due diligence, checking the site, making sure that everything we quoted is on the drawing, and going through all the smaller details that wouldn't have been necessary to discuss at that early quoting stage. A little bit of assumption work and going through the assumptions. Once a completed stamp drawing is done, the next stage is whether or not a permit, or dictated whether or not a permit is required. If a permit is required, this is when other consultants come into play. Now we're talking about slab, we're talking about the concrete that's supporting the racking, we're talking about the fire sprinkler and suppression systems, we're talking about exit paths and emergency signage, and we're looking at doing all the due diligence to get ready for the next goal, which is to submit the permit to the city. Now, once the permit has been submitted to the city, that kind of becomes one of the bigger unknown stages. Every city has a different timeline. Some get back to you quickly, others take a little bit longer. There can often be some back and forth because there's little things that need to be changed. But the next goal at this point would be to get a permit. Now, once you get that permit, usually now it's a sprint towards the installation. Derek, how do you see, what components go into behind the scenes that our customers may not actually get to see?
Are you talking about on the production side of things, or
after we have an approved drawing, it's stamped, everything is finalized from their perspective, and now they're waiting for install day. What are we doing?
Yeah, a lot of behind the scenes work, right? So we're talking to our purchasing, we're talking to production, we're getting everybody in line. We're talking to the installers. So you loop everybody in at that point, right? You make sure your timelines are what the customer is asking for, what you've discussed, everybody knows, right? These are our hard timelines. This is when we need our product. This is when they need everything installed. So that's kind of the behind the scenes stuff you're looking at there, with the manufacturing side of it, with the delivery coordination and getting your installer in line with those dates. So there's a lot of stuff going on when the customer is once they give you the go ahead. And then once you get that, you wait as long as you might have to wait. Could be 2 weeks, could be 30 weeks, depends on the size of the job. And when all that organizing is going on and materials are coming through, that's when you're getting closer to your installation phase. And that's when you bring your installer in at some, 6 weeks out, 4 weeks out, whenever you can get in there is the best. But that's when you bring them in and make sure you get everybody on the same page for that process. So when the racking comes in, where you're going to lay it down, all that kind of stuff. But the installation phase has a lot from start to finish. You have your inspection at the end to get your sign-offs if you have your stamped drawings. And then once you have it from there, then you have your handover.
Derek, what are the stages of the installation and milestones we're looking to hit there?
Once you are ready to go and that product, you know that product's coming, you're hitting those timelines, you've already had these conversations with the installer on the process. You've had the conversations with production on the materials we're getting to site. You've already had all these lined up. So once it hits, you get to site, you know that you don't have to walk through a hallway once the racking gets there. You know you can bring in that flatbed and you can take it off. So knowing all that is great. You have the right material there. So you do your staging, you do your shooting of the floor, you're making sure, again, with these conversations prior, if there's any obstructions. I know you've had some projects where you have heating in the floor, where you have cooling, where you got to be aware of drainage in the floor. So these installers know it now, but this is when you're marking those areas out. You're seeing where the floor is level, where you might have to shim it. And so they're going out and doing all that dirty work now. They're actually implementing it. And then you're executing if it's a larger job, your phased out plan. Where are you starting? You get that starting point, the materials arriving, you're building from there. And the timing between production and the install is huge. So you have your big staging area where hopefully you do. There's obviously, again, situations you might not have that area. You might be bringing in material and putting it up right away. But so you're going through that process of installing all this racking, and once it's stood, once it's up, I'm sure you visit your sites a whole bunch as it's going through. Make sure if there's any issues that you're addressing them right away. We all want to jump on that. We don't want delays. We want our customer to be up and running as soon as they can. So a lot of hands-on from us in the install side of organizing, make sure we're there for the installer, for the customer, for everybody involved to make sure it's a smooth transition once that racking is in place and ready to go.
I think there's one variable that sometimes make people hesitate towards a project is how do we do this project while we're still operating? And I think that's an important question and something that can come up early or should come up early is how do you juggle your operations and avoid downtime and get the best success out of your project? Derek, you've been on the install side of things. How do you approach that?
Yeah, it's communication at the beginning. It's, okay, you need to stay up and running, but there's a give and take. What can you allow us to do to get what you need installed, right? So maybe it is they have 8 runs of racking they need, but they've already had pallets come in. So they're using floor storage right now. They don't have another area to put it. So what they need us to do is we're going to put 2 runs up, then they're going to come in, clear some space on the other side, load that up. And it flows nicely. We've had a lot of projects where it goes that way. In an ideal world, we have an open space, but that's not always going to happen. Customers need to work and keep their business going too. You're not always going to have the perfect scenario in every instance. But like I kind of touched on before, and what you brought up there is there's a lot of these things we talk about first for the installation with dock doors, with the drive-in doors or the dock level doors, how the stuff's being offloaded. That it really goes into figuring out how this installation is going to go. Yeah. So just like I said before, the communication, and there's going to be stuff in the way, and just work together and see what works, and we've been able to get it done. I'm trying to think of any other scenarios that you might have had in the installation side. Same with me here. I know, like I brought up before, the staging area, right? What if I have no room inside and I have to stage it outside? Well, we've had some scenarios where, I mean, it's not ideal if it's painted. The weather could have adverse,
The rain,
effects on the racking over time, and you might have to bring in a bigger forklift, feed it through dock doors. Again, there's so many things that can happen, but things that we can always figure out a solution to.
Yeah.
Right? But there's not a lot that the team hasn't had to deal with and overcome, right?
Definitely.
And what's your process like with your customers when you're doing your handover after the job?
So that's usually a walkthrough, check for any sort of deficiencies, make sure they understand the system, kind of give them just a good idea of what they've got, and make sure they can see that going from drawing to reality. Usually there's a closeout. If there's permits involved, you're going to need to get the various consultants in to inspect each of their portions and sign off on it so that we can close out the permit with the city, which then has its final inspection from the city. You're also getting your PSR exemptions or PSRs, as well as Schedule Bs or Cs, depending on where you're located, to be able to have everything you need to be compliant with the ministry or WorkSafe.
And then we get back to what we talked about before, the closeouts, right? And not all customers have asked for the same things, or everybody has a little different requirements for their warehouses, whether, again, it's a couple bays here or it's a massive warehouse where you want your capacity signages on the ends, where you want capacity stickers. Some customers require it, some do not. So it's a lot of that fine detail work at the end that you're kind of putting together.
So Derek, we've covered a lot today, from initial contact and discovery through to quoting, design, permitting, and installation. What is your best advice for our clients when it comes to timelines?
That's a great question. That can depend on a lot of different factors, mainly, project complexity, permitting requirements, even production scheduling. That's why it's very important to connect early, connect often. Just keep that communication line right there to try to capture all these different items that could prolong a project. So we can see what their needs are, and we can start that planning process early, as soon as we can.
That makes a lot of sense. Discovery is that key opportunity. I think it's a great chance for us to share the experience we've learned through all the different projects we've been involved in and really help make this racking project a success. The big thing we want to make sure is that you're planning to fit your goals and timelines.
If you're considering a new system or even just budgeting for the future, reach out. We are here to help make it a success from day one.
Thanks for watching.